What's going on, everybody? Curtis Wilkerson with HawgSports.com coming to you live today from Birmingham, Alabama. That's right, Fayetteville for Barnhill Arena on Sunday for the Red-White game. It's Wednesday. We're in Birmingham, Alabama for SEC Basketball Media Day. It's the first time that they've done this since 2019 because of COVID. The last couple years it's been virtual Zoom meetings, things of that nature. So this is my first opportunity to go check this thing out, and it was really just an incredible experience. So happy that I drove down here to do this. Really cool. Wanted to hop on, recap it, talk to you guys about it, give you some takeaways. First of all, the day started with the SEC media poll coming out. Arkansas ranked number 2 in the SEC in the projected order of finish behind Kentucky. I think that's right. I think that's right. I think it's fair. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little bit surprised, pleasantly surprised, that Arkansas wound up where they did. I think it says a lot about the newcomers for the Razorbacks. You have 11 new pieces on this team. That's a lot. It's an entire roster turned over, people. For Arkansas to be number 10 in the country in the AP poll, for Arkansas to be projected second in the SEC, man, that's a lot of respect for your program. So if you're a Razorback fan that's ticked off about not being number 1 or not being higher in the preseason top 25, no, you should be really happy because there's a lot of respect for the Razorbacks right now. I think it says a lot about your newcomers. Eric Musselman kind of echoed that sentiment. Man, 6 freshmen, 5 transfers. I think they feel really good about what Arkansas has going on. From a roster standpoint, you've got to be able to build it. It's going to take a little bit of time. Maybe there'll be some growing pains, yada, yada, yada. But what I think it also does, it says a lot about Eric Musselman as a coach and the respect, the benefit of the doubt that he's kind of built up, right? I mean, if you take a look at it, Eric Musselman figures it out. When you go to back-to-back Elite Eights, people believe that you can do it again, regardless of what you have going on your roster, regardless of turnover and things of that nature. So I think that speaks volumes about Eric Musselman. I really do. I think it speaks volumes about his ability to bring teams together, right, and kind of form them and mold them into something special. And I think he's got that opportunity because the talent's not in question. I think it's very interesting that you have a team that's projected second in the standings in your conference, and you only have one guy get all SEC honors. Now, his first team all SEC, and Nick Smith, he's the first Razorback freshman to get those preseason honors, which is great. But there were other teams that are ranked lower than Arkansas who had multiple guys, returning guys, proven guys who were on there. Yet Arkansas still received the second highest amount of votes. It's impressive. People are picking up what Arkansas is putting down. You love to see it. I think it's always interesting at these kind of things to just hear what other coaches and players are saying about Arkansas, right? Nick Smith, obviously a hot topic of conversation because he comes in as the number 1 ranked prospect in the country, right? People think he's going to do big things, and I thought it was neat. We talked to G.G. Jackson. For those of you who aren't familiar, this guy is a freshman at South Carolina. He was committed to North Carolina, decommitted, committed to South Carolina. Kind of similar dudes in that Nick Smith is the number 1 ranked prospect in the 2022 class. G.G. Jackson is the number 1 prospect in the 2023 class, reclassified, enrolled early, but he understands what comes, in terms of expectations and hype and build-up and things like that with being a top-ranked prospect. He told us that he actually attended the top 100 camp when he was a sophomore with Nick Smith. They were roommates. Said he was a good roommate, by the way, so I guess he was clean, wasn't too loud, wasn't bumping the music, whatever. But just came away really impressed with him. Was talking about his ability to score and go get buckets and how he feels like it's going to translate. Kind of talked about how he was, he's a year younger than Nick is, and kind of talked about how he was maybe a little bit starstruck from seeing him there at that event. It's just crazy to think about that. These guys are teenagers, but there's so many different connections and guys are intertwined in different ways. I thought that was really cool. And, obviously he was a highly recruited prospect. He came down to a list of finalists of Arkansas, who he ultimately chose, but Alabama, Auburn, UAPB, and Alabama's head coach Nate Oates was asked about him. He said, hey, yeah, look, we recruited him. We wanted him. He stayed home at Arkansas. They did get Brandon Miller, who's a really nice player, 5-star player, who played with Nick on Brad Beal Elite on the Nike EYBL. So those guys are teammates. And so naturally, Nate Oates watched Nick play a lot. He would have even if he wasn't recruiting him. But he was like, hey, I see him on mock draft boards. I think he can be one of the better freshmen in the country. I think he's got the skills to back it up. He can play on the ball, off the ball. So some really high praise there to go along with what Eric Musselman and teammates were saying about him throughout the course of the day. So hearing it from other people, it kind of gets you excited, right? It was the same thing with Trevin Brazile. We just wrapped up the day with Ole Miss's Kermit Davis. When Brazile was at Mizzou, he had a big game against the Rebels. I think something like 9 points, 7 rebounds, several blocks, whatever. And they kind of owned Ole Miss. I don't think either team was particularly good, but it was a good matchup for Missouri. Brazile played really well in those. And Kermit Davis said that he spoke to Quanzo Martin about Brazile after one of those games and said that he thought he had one of the highest upsides in the country, and just spoke volumes about him. And you like to hear that, right, from opposing coaches, because we see it, we hype it. The Arkansas staff does it, teammates do it, but when you hear it from the competition, it just adds a little bit of spice to it. We also got to talk to Kobe Brown, who's star player for Missouri, returner, was teammates with Brazile last year. I asked him what stood out about Trevin. The first thing he said was he's a jokester. So he's a clown, funny guy, always lighthearted, always joking. So it sounds like Arkansas's got a good teammate there in Trevin Brazile. And then he said, hey, this guy came in skinny, put on a lot of weight. He didn't have a lot of confidence right away. He built it up, steadily improved, always in the gym, always working hard. Those are the things you want to hear from guys who are now competition. So some good stuff there from SEC Media Days. Obviously, Kamani Johnson and Devo Davis represented Arkansas as players today. Just really impressed with those guys, really impressed. Got to get a little bit of a one-on-one, kind of an exclusive interview opportunity with both of them. Only a couple minutes with Devo. Had a fairly extended interview with Kamani. Those guys were so busy, but extremely gracious. And when you walk around and talk to these players and interact with them all day, what stood out to me about Devo and Kamani was their energy, their personality, and their charisma. It was kind of infectious. It was contagious. You wanted to be around them. You wanted to continue to talk to them. Even if you're not asking questions for an interview to write a story about, they're just guys that you want to be around. And when those are your only two returners and your de facto leaders on the team, that's a pretty good omen, right? So a good day from that standpoint. A couple hot topics that were brought up to a lot of the coaches, kind of basketball on the broad spectrum, that I thought was really interesting. We've been hearing some rumblings about the potential of summer basketball coming to college hoops. Every 4 years you can go on a foreign tour, play some teams overseas like Arkansas did this year. But there's been some talk and some chatter about maybe we start doing some actual summer exhibitions where these colleges are playing other colleges. Maybe they tie some charities, get them involved. Maybe they do these MTEs, the multi-team events or the tournaments. 4 to 8 teams, find a neutral site and play it out. Overwhelming support for that. I didn't hear a single coach who was like, I don't know if we want to do that. No, they all want to do that because the coaches know the off season's too long, man. The summer's a long time to be practicing. And then the preseason. I mean, you could be from the end of May until nearly November before you play anybody else for an exhibition. That's crazy. The NBA has preseason with several games. The NFL has preseason with several games. I think that'd be a great thing for basketball. I think it'd be a great way to keep the sport, kind of in a premier sense, kind of at the top of the charts at a time where really, in a lot of ways, the only thing going on is Major League Baseball. So I think there's a market there, NBA playoffs, of course, but I think there's a market there, or maybe a niche that they could carve. And Musselman mentioned, hey, we got a lot of people paying a ton of attention to the NBA Summer League in Vegas. It doesn't matter, but people love it. Why couldn't college basketball have the same thing? So I thought that was really interesting. The other thing, a lot of talk about, the possibility of expanding the NCAA tournament from 68 teams on out to 80, 96, whatever. I think Greg Sankey has talked about that, and maybe there are teams who have the potential to cut down the nets who are being left out of the field for whatever reason. He kind of pointed to Ole Miss. Their baseball team was the last team in. They go on to the College World Series and things of that nature. On the basketball front, Texas A&M was obviously a buzzsaw. They blew Arkansas's doors off in the SEC tournament. Had some great wins there, but the resume didn't stack up. They didn't get in the NCAA tournament. You wonder if that could have been a Cinderella team. You've seen some of those lower seeds, St. Peter's, whatever, do that in the past. So do they need to expand it? Or are they getting all the best teams in? Very interesting to hear some of the remarks there. For the most part, power conference coaches like the SEC, nah, it ain't broke, don't fix it. 68 teams, right where it needs to be. Eric Musselman echoed that sentiment as well. He likes it where it's at. He knows how difficult it is to make the NCAA tournament, to advance in the tournament. Why water that down? Because it's such an honor to get there. And I tend to agree with him from that standpoint. But it was interesting to hear some of the other coaches talk about it. You know, there's 6 new coaches in the SEC. 5 of them are mid-major guys who are working their way up. You know, this is their first high major job. And a lot of them have been on the other end of the spectrum where it's like, hey, you know, had a really good season, might have won 30 games. You get bumped in your conference tournament, finals, semifinals, or whatever, and all of a sudden you're not going to the big dance after having a great year. So for schools like that, some of those mid-majors, you could kind of see why they might want to expand this thing a little bit. Found that fascinating. You know, the other 2 that kind of surprised me, maybe some teams that are a little bit lower on the totem pole, Vanderbilt's Jerry Stackhouse, Ole Miss's Kermit Davis, they were both kind of like, hey, expand it on out, right? More teams, more opportunities, let us get in there. So I thought that was funny. It'll be interesting to see. I don't think that's something that's going to happen anytime soon. I'd be surprised if it happened at all. But man, it's a buzzing topic, and people were talking about it. So pretty neat, I thought. Real quick before I get out of here, I do want to give a shout out to Muss. You know, he's great with the media, and I think fans need to be really appreciative of what they've gotten Eric Musselman, not just as a coach and the success that he's brought to the program, but who he is as a person. You know, today it's a frenzy. You know, people run around all over the place. There's interviews going on. You know, I walk outside and I see Eric Musselman, Devo, Kamani. You know, those guys are having lunch with the communications guys from the U of A, and, you know, sees us and just so welcoming. You know, Eric Musselman pulled me up a chair to have me sit and just be there with him to shoot the breeze, not interview, nothing on the record, but just to be around him, just to hang out. And that's really, really cool, something I really appreciate. Not a lot of coaches do that. In fact, I didn't see too many at all doing that with their local media over the course of the day today, and all 14 SEC teams were here. So shout out to Muss for that. Thought it was really cool. Hey, next up, Monday night, October 24th, Rogers State, Division II, coming into town, exhibition game. Arkansas almost lost to a Division II school last year, so we'll have our eyes on that. But it'll be great to see the Razorbacks in Bud Walton Arena for the first time against some other competition. And then the following weekend, Saturday the 29th, the charity exhibition, opening up the Moody Center at Texas. I will see you in Austin. I'm looking forward to it. Appreciate you guys. It's been a great day here in Birmingham at SEC Media Day. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with HawgSports. We'll catch you next time.